So welcome to our Meet Your Professor Environmental Science, Geology, and Environmental Geoscience webinar. Thank you for joining us. And then for introductions, I'll just start with myself. I'm Claire Bryan. I'm an enrollment advisor. I did graduate from Acadia back in 2013, and obviously now I work here.
And this is Dr. Nelson O'Driscoll. I'll turn my camera on so you can see me as well. And I'll be talking through a lot of the slides today, along with Dr. Rayside, who's head of the department, and I'll let Rob say hello.
Hi, I'm Rob Rayside, Dr. Rayside, and I'm the person that runs the department and have to answer all the tough questions when people bring them up at the end.
Hi, I'm Haley, and I'm one of the recent graduates that will be answering a few questions during the Q&A.
Get started and just to walk you through some of the things you might like to know about our department at Acadia, Earth and Environmental Science. First of all, my name is Nelson O'Driscoll. I'm a professor of environmental science primarily. I also work with environmental geoscience students in some of my courses. And so I'll talk with you about some parts of that program and our department overall, and some of the more geological oriented things I might bring Rob into the conversation to clarify and answer questions. But I'm really looking forward to having all of you on campus in person as soon as possible, and we're all making the best of what we can at this time with our virtual interactions. So if you have any questions at the end, I'd be happy to answer them as well. You might be wondering what your time at Acadia is going to look like in our programs in Earth and Environmental Science, and we actually have 3 separate undergraduate programs in Earth and Environmental Science. The first that I'll talk about is the BSc of Environmental Science. And this flowchart shows you what your courses will look like over the 4 years of your degree. So in the first year of your program, one of the things that I do want to emphasize as well is that in almost any of the programs that we have at Acadia in the sciences, don't worry too much about if you want to switch programs in your second or third year. You'll see there's a lot of core sciences that appear in your first year, and switching between programs is not too difficult. So if you get into environmental science or geology or environmental geoscience and you want to move between those programs, or you're thinking about moving to a different program in the sciences, that's not something you really need to worry a whole lot about in your first year. So the environmental science program in your first year, you'll be doing a lot of different introductory environmental science courses. So you'll take biology, both parts of introductory biology, introductory chemistry, introductory geology as well, and you'll do a dedicated introduction to environmental science, of which there are 2 halves. And this is the course that you'll see me in your first year is ENVS 1013. I teach the fall term of that course, and we talk about the development of multidisciplinary science and discussion of ecosystems and environmental issues. And usually Alice Cohen teaches the second half of this course, and that is more focused on sustainability and policy initiatives in environmental science. And we try to tie together all of these different disparate sciences that you're learning in your first year to talk about environmental issues. You also have one elective that you'll choose, and that will be in discussion with Dr. Rayside about what your interests are and what electives might fit into your program. And as we move further on from your first year into your second, third, and fourth year, you'll see that you start to move into more focused environmental science courses and topics. So in your second year, you'll take microbiology and organic chemistry, and also an environmental analytical chemistry course. You'll do geomorphology, you'll do statistics, and you'll do an environmental physics course. And the second year after that term, after exams, is when you'll also take our environmental science field school, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. And as you move into your upper year classes in your third and fourth year, you'll see you have a lot of electives, so you can really start to focus your area of interest in environmental science. So if you're leaning more towards policy, you can take courses that move you into that area. If you're interested more in biology, you might take more biology courses, or geology or chemistry. So you can focus on your interests while ending up with a multidisciplinary degree. So that's sort of an overview of what your course structure will look like. I'm going to show you next is the geology program, and Rob, maybe you can take over and talk a little bit about the course flow in geology here.
Yes, I can. So it is very similar to the course flow in environmental science. First, second, third, fourth year are laid out there with a whole bunch of courses that are sequential that you must follow through. But you'll see that a lot of the courses in the first year are defined. You do chemistry, math, physics, as well as the geology courses. And these lead you up into the second year geology courses, which will become much more discipline specific as you go further on through it. I'm not going to go into all the details of these courses. You'll learn more about them. At the moment, they just look like numbers. But perhaps we go to the third slide, Nelson, the next slide, Nelson. We'll see the environmental geoscience program, which is a bit of a blend of geology and environmental science. Environmental geoscience sits between the two, but it's a recognized discipline when it comes to graduation and working in the field. And it again looks very much like environmental science in the first year, perhaps a bit more like geology in the second year of the program, and continues on to completion with more and more elective courses as you get to the end of the program. Okay, back to you, Nelson.
Great, thanks, Rob. So I've organized this presentation by some questions that you might have coming into the department. And one of the things that students are often interested in is how much we're going to get outside as part of these degree programs. And in Earth and Environmental Science, we place quite a large emphasis on getting students outside and doing hands-on field work and really learning some practical skills in addition to the academic things you'll be doing in the classroom. So in terms of field work opportunities, there are lots of different opportunities, particularly in the second year in the environmental science, environmental geoscience and geology programs. You'll be doing a component of a second year field course that's run in the spring for about 10 days. The environmental science students stick mostly to mainland Nova Scotia, and the geology students in the second week go up into the highlands of Cape Breton. And we have a lot of different components of that course. It's run by a number of different professors, and you'll be doing things out in the field, and you'll really be getting some great field experiences. Geology also has a fourth year field school, which I believe is run in the highlands as well. Rob, would you want to speak about the fourth year field school just for a second?
Right, so the fourth year field school is a dedicated geological mapping project where we stay there for about 10 days at the Gaelic College in Cape Breton. We also have a field school in cooperation with Queen's University where students can go to Bermuda to take a week-long field excursion studying both above water and underwater the geology of limestone deposits. So these are both very active field schools. And then there is the biology field school as well for the environmental science majors, which they may want to take on Bon Portage Island on the south coast of Nova Scotia.
Yeah, so there are many different opportunities to get into formal field courses, but there are also many courses that you'll be taking as part of your regular program that have field trips and lab components where you'll be outside. There are also two of the dedicated student societies, the Geology Fletcher Club and the Environmental Science Student Association, which run field trips during the year. And when I talk a little bit later about co-op and doing honors and original research, those are other opportunities that you can get into which will get you outside and working in the field. So that field work component and being outside is something that we really emphasize in our department, and it's something that I think is really great experience for the students before they go out into the workforce. But another aspect of it that is really great, I'm just going to show some slides in the background here of the second year field school, is that that's where you really get to bond and meet with the other students that are in the same years as you within the program. You'll get to know each other really well. You'll be working on common projects. You'll be learning in the field. And we find that the students really, really appreciate these experiences. The Environmental Science Field School hits a number of different ecosystems in and around Nova Scotia. These are some pictures of work that was done on the coastal areas in the Minas Basin. And sometimes you'll be working on fluvial and river systems and lake type systems. And sometimes you'll be collecting samples, sometimes invertebrates, and identifying those invertebrates. Sometimes you'll be collecting plant samples. You may be extracting cores in the field and looking at the chemical properties of those cores. And then working some of those samples that you've collected in the field back in the lab, looking at them under microscopes and identifying things, and sometimes analyzing them for different chemical components. So there's a lot of different aspects that we do in field school, and these are a few pictures here that you can see from the Fletcher Society and the ESSA Club field trips that have been run around the Minas Basin as well. So there's all of these different opportunities that will get you outside, and we think it's a really key part of the educational experience in our department. So in terms, I mentioned that you can also do an honors option in terms of your Bachelor's of Science. So what opportunities will you have for research in our department? Well, the honors option is a key one, and you would probably start thinking about this in the second or third year of your program if you want to take advantage of that option. You'd work with a dedicated faculty supervisor, and you would do some original research on a topic of interest that fits in with that supervisor's research program. So being a university, we have a lot of research opportunities that are always ongoing. That's a key part of our job as faculty members, is to produce original research and to publish that research. Also, through the co-op option program, which I'll talk about co-op a little later, you may have placements and work placements, that is, that will have you working outside and doing research as a component of that co-op option. So other ways in which you are exposed to research include some of your classes. For example, in the senior seminar in environmental science, we spend time talking about the development of science and hypothesis and working on how you develop an original research project. So there'll be components of research incorporated into a lot of your regular classes as well. Being a university, we have a lot of infrastructure and opportunity for fieldwork at field sites. So Acadia has many different research centers on and off campus and field sites which can be visited and can be used as part of your honors research. Some of those would include areas such as the Morton Center, which is a property that Acadia owns. It's located on Heckman's Island in Nova Scotia. It's a 99-acre property. It's comprised of mixed coniferous and deciduous forests and hay fields, and there's access to the shoreline. So we've run components of the Environmental Science Field School at that site. The Blue Nose Coastal Action Fund is based out of that site and runs educational programs. We also have had students who have completed large portions of their honors research within those sites as well. So that's a dedicated center that is available for use for research within our department. We also have the Beaubassin Research Center, which is located on the Tantramar Marsh area, straddling sort of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia region. And it's a really interesting landscape there, set on the Bay of Fundy with coastal wetlands and also intertidal areas. So there's a lot of work that happens in that area in terms of migratory bird movements and looking at the movements and the ecology of songbirds and shorebirds. It's also historically a very important region in North America, and several professors have done work on the archaeology and the history of that region as well. So there are lots of field sites that we have available. We also have a number of different centers available at Acadia. One of the ones that I'll highlight here is the Casey Irving Environmental Science Center, and this is where my labs are located in the downstairs of this center. And also this is where many of your environmental science classes will take place. But it's not just an environmental science student center. It's a multidisciplinary center. So we'll have courses in here. Introductory geology is sometimes taught in this building as well. And so it's a place where people from all different disciplines can come together and work on environmental topics. And it's a beautiful building set right on the top of the hill at the Acadia campus. So you'll see that when you come to campus if you haven't already seen that center. So within that center, I have some of my labs, and these are just a few pictures from some of my labs and some of my honors students and a couple of graduate students that are working on research projects to do with contaminants and contaminant movements. But I've had the good fortune of working with a large number of really great environmental science students over the years, and also some geology students as well. And there's a couple here in these first slides. This is Amy Buckland-Nix, who graduated with an honors in environmental science, and this is a picture of her working on her research collecting dragonflies in Ketchimakuchik Park and looking at contamination within those dragonflies. This is Gillian Hanmore, who did an honors looking at mercury photoreactions in soil. And we have a couple of students here. This is Brian Reedpath measuring orientation of volcanic deposits in Arisag. And Rob, was Brian working with Sandra Barr as part of that work? Do you remember?
This is actually Brian working, doing his field school project at Arisag.
Okay.
He didn't do an honors project, but we have several geology honors projects that work. This is the Antigonish Highlands in northern Nova Scotia, and I think we've had about half a dozen honors projects in that area in the past 6 years.
Okay. And we also have Caleb Grant here. This is a picture of him working on his research with Dr. Sandra Barr in our department and in the Central Cape Breton Highlands. So just to give you a flavor there of some of the projects that can happen as an honors student at Acadia. So I mentioned that the co-op is also an option as part of your program. And the co-op option involves 3 4-month work terms in the workplace. And this is something that a lot of the students in our department are taking advantage of these days. It gives you connections to different industries. It gives you field experience. It allows you to make a little bit of money during your co-op terms. It extends your degree program a little bit, usually by about a year. But it provides an excellent opportunity to get your foot in the door with different industries. So you have come out of this experience with co-op of having a lot of different connections that you can look for work after you leave Acadia. So the co-op is not something you need to make a decision on right away. If you're interested, you'd apply for the co-op option in the second year of your program. So you have time to get into Acadia and start in your introductory courses and think about what's going to be right for you. And maybe Haley and Jeff will have some things to say about the co-op option as well. Another option that we have in our department there is so you can just do your regular BSc program in any one of our major programs, but you have all of these other options you can take advantage of. Another one that is very popular is the study abroad programs. We have formal exchange programs with Plymouth University in England. We have the Norwegian University of Life Sciences in Norway, and we have USQ in Australia. So those are just a few of the different formal exchanges that we have set up with universities that allow for travel. And I know Haley took advantage of some of the opportunities in Europe, so she'll tell you a little bit about that as well in her experience, I hope. In terms of student organizations, we have two key student organizations within our department. There are lots of student organizations all over campus that you can get involved with at the university level. But within our department, we have the Fletcher Geology Club and we have the Acadia Environmental Science Association. And both of those programs are ways for you to meet other interested students within your department. These groups often combine together to do field trips and do different events. So each year, the representatives for that program will be organizing things like field trips to the Morton Center and other important ecological areas. Things like Relay for Life and movie nights and different types of events that you can get involved with and get out and meet people and basically have some fun and connect with your peers. Another question that we often get is this question about, can we register as professional geologists or professional environmental scientists when we graduate from this program? So just to be clear, this is a different designation than getting your undergraduate bachelor's degree. This is an add-on sort of designation that you can get once you've graduated from a program. It involves a number of different steps. I have links here if you want to look at the geology and environmental geoscience programs. You can check out this link about how you'd go about registering for a professional geologist. And we'll talk more about this when you're in the program. We have sessions running about how can you register for these things as you're getting closer to graduation. What you should know is that the environmental science program and the geology programs are accredited programs. Environmental science is accredited with this organization called Eco-Canada. And what that means is that we've designed the programs so that you have all of the components that you need to be ready for professional registration. So when you leave Acadia, you're going to be well on the road to getting your professional registration, either as a geologist or an environmental scientist. And that's a key thing. Not all universities have that have their programs set up to be able to achieve that. In terms of scholarships we have available within our department, one of the ones that you might want to be aware of is the Irving Scholarship, which is an environmental science scholarship, but it can be given to any student who's interested in the environment from any of the programs at Acadia. The Irving Scholarships are for $15,000 a year for 4 years, so that's $60,000 worth of scholarship if you're lucky enough to get one of those. We also have dedicated Woodman Scholarship for $6,000 within the department, and several awards that are open only to students in geology and environmental science. So those are additional program-specific scholarships that are available, in addition to the scholarships that Acadia as a university offers incoming students. So if you're interested in any of those, you can get in touch with Dr. Rayside at some point in the future, or Ian Spooner is one of the key people coordinating the Irving Scholarships at this point. So you might be thinking, what about once we graduate from these programs? I know a lot of the parents want to know what's the job opportunities after graduation. And I can tell you that Rob in particular has been very good about tracking a lot of our students as they've left our programs through the years and finding out where have they gone on after their degree, what sort of employment have they ended up with, have they gone on to graduate schools. And so we have some information that we can give you about where our graduates are ending up. Rob, would you like to address the geology graduates, where they're ending up in their jobs, and I'll talk about ENVS?
Yes, I can do that. This is a survey that we did about 3 or 4 years ago. So for the 10 years previous to that, we were looking at where students were working in geology. And as you can see from the numbers there, well over half of them were working in jobs that they used their geology degree directly in it there. Looking at the various sectors whether that's the mining or the oil and gas sector or the environmental sector, because environmental geoscience is a big issue. You've probably noticed that the price of gas has gone down recently. It goes up and down quite a lot through the years, and so do the careers of people in the oil and gas sector. But there are other areas that geoscientists work in, and they can move back and forward from one to the other. We always have some going on to graduate school as well, and a few others that end up working in government or sometimes even teaching in universities. These are our geology graduates, and right at the moment, the geology career opportunities are probably as good as they've ever been in the environmental and the hydrogeological sector, and as bad as they've ever been in the oil and gas sector. But that just shows how one balances against the other.
Great, thank you, Rob. On the environmental science side of things, we're seeing that about 25% of our graduates are working in the environmental sector upon graduation. About 23% end up going into graduate school in environmental science, and 9% in graduate school in other areas. It could be going into medicine, law, or business. It's a multidisciplinary degree, so there are a lot of graduate opportunities that you would be well prepared for. About 3% end up in the mining sector, 3% in various government sectors, 3% in the IT sector, and about 9% that we are in job opportunities that aren't directly related to the degree. So very good success rate here of getting students into employment in areas that they're interested in. If you look at where things are going, at least on the environmental science side of things, this is some information from Eco Canada, and currently there is in the ballpark of 364,000 environmental workers in Canada, and that number is expected to grow to about 100,000 jobs by 2024. So around the same time that a lot of you will be coming out of your degree programs at Acadia. About 60% of those workers hold a diploma or a higher qualification, and about 22% of the current workforce is expected to retire in the next decade. So I would say that's those are pretty good job prospects coming through our department. So that's an overview of some of the things that we have to offer in our department and our various degree programs. And from my experience working with a number of students on research projects and teaching in our department over 13 years now, I can say that the geology, environmental science, and environmental geoscience programs have some of the best students on campus, in my biased opinion. And of course, two of those students we have with us today, Haley Gieser, who's an honors environmental science graduate, and Jeff Sharp, who's an environmental geoscience graduate. And I think at this point, we're going to allow Haley and Jeff to say a few words before we open things up to questions. Haley, would you like to maybe go first? Get your mic muted there, Haley. There you go.
Yes, I got it right on. Okay, yeah, hi everyone again. So I'm Haley and I just graduated with environmental science from Acadia. I took part in honors in study abroad and in co-op. So I'm one of those rare students that can tell you that you can do it all if you want to. I would say that I was drawn to Acadia because of the bright town of Wolfville and the beautiful campus that we have and the energy from students that I noticed while I was on tours. And then I chose environmental science just because of my love for questions in science in grade 10 and grade 11 and 12. So as Nelson said, environmental science is unique in that it's a combination of many classes like biology, geology, chemistry, statistics, and more. I would say your first 2 years are really busy taking those core courses. But like Nelson said, later on, you get to tailor your degree to your specific interests within that environmental or geology degree. So that's really nice. So that being said, I found my last 2 years slightly easier because I was genuinely more interested in most, if not all, of my courses. So I can say that I really enjoyed it, especially this past year at Acadia. What makes this program so great is definitely the professors and the class sizes. So your first 2 years, you might have close to 100 people sometimes in your core science courses, but in your third and fourth year, I only had roughly 15 to 30, probably closer to the lower end of that scale. And your professors, they get to know you by name, and they hold one-on-one office hours so that if you're confused about a concept or need any kind of clarification, you can just go to their office and have that one-on-one time. And that's something that larger universities obviously can't cater to. So Nelson also mentioned the Environmental Science Student Association. And so that's, again, a club that you can do many different extracurricular things with, and it's really easy to get involved, and I would highly recommend getting involved. I made most of my friends in my classes and labs, but especially going to social events and meeting more like-minded people. Speaking more towards cooperative education, honors, and study abroad. So cooperative education, to give you more information, it's a 3-4 month long work periods that you can do in your second year summer, your third year summer, and your third year winter term. And this gives you relevant work experience, good references, and resume building skills. It's also a great way to pay for your schooling if you are kind of doing that on your own, which that really helps me out. In addition, you can conduct a research project, like Nelson said, with honors, and sometimes those two things go hand in hand if you find the right funding. So for my honors, I was actually getting paid as a co-op work term to do my honors thesis. So they really mesh well together. And then another option we have is study abroad, which is where in your third year, you can go abroad and study at a foreign university for 1 or 2 semesters. So I actually studied at the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. I knew nothing about Norway before leaving. I just knew that I loved Europe the last time I was there and I really wanted to be over there. And being away from home, you actually learn a lot more about yourself and about your own country, surprisingly. It makes you push limits you didn't even know you had. And then it gives you the opportunity to travel and still study and get your degree done on time. So I'll just highlight that the deadlines for that is usually in your second year, like January-ish. So just keep that in mind, because sometimes it's not the most promoted thing on campus, but it's definitely a really good opportunity. And I would recommend that you take advantage of at least one of those things, either honors or co-op or study abroad, just to get as much as you can from your degree. Yeah, so I would just say that embarking on this new chapter is so exciting. If I was standing in front of the 18-year-old Haley, I wouldn't even recognize her, just because that's how much growth can happen at Acadia. I can imagine thinking about going to university during this time is stressful, but just remember to take risks and put in the effort and care for yourself. And yeah, you got this. Pretty much all I have to say.
Great, thanks very much, Haley. And certainly you're one of our great environmental science students that come out of the program. It was great working with you on honors work over that time. Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you for a second. If you could come on, turn your camera on and your mic, and maybe say a few words about your experience with the environmental geoscience program.
Yeah, of course. First, got to say that I loved all the time that I spent at Acadia. It really was incredible. I came here in 2016, and I'm originally from Ontario, so it was a little bit of a strange move to come out here a few provinces away. But I never felt uncomfortable here. I always felt welcome. I met some incredible people. And if any of you are coming from out of province or maybe even out of country, there shouldn't be any cause for alarm. It really is an incredible place. And I did choose environmental science originally when I came here, just because I liked the outdoors and nature and everything that it had to offer, getting your hands dirty, that sort of thing. And the first couple years were very good. The courses were fantastic. The professors were incredible as well. And as they mentioned earlier in the presentation, there are a few slight variations. You could have environmental science, geoscience, and maybe even just strictly geology. And somewhere along my first year, I decided that maybe environmental science wasn't for me. There were some courses that I'd rather avoid and whatnot as things go. So I went up to Rob and I asked if he could perhaps sort of push my schedule for second year into a way that it would work regardless of the choice that I made. And thankfully for him, when I did want to switch, and I did, I wasn't left behind. I was already set and fully on my way. And in my third year, I decided to get a little bit more involved. I became the events coordinator for the Fletcher Geology Club, which was incredible. Met a lot of people and planned a lot of events and had a lot of fun. I also took part in the field schools mentioned before. There was the junior field school up near Antigonish, and then I also took part in the Bermuda Field School, which is by far one of the greatest things I've ever done. It was incredible, just snorkeling around and looking at all the lovely sights and beautiful, beautiful rocks that are on that island. I mean, and then coming into my fourth year, I became the president of the Fletcher Club. So that gave me a lot more sway and some planning of events. And we did a lot of really, really fun stuff this year. We did rock climbing and high ropes and potlucks. And it really was just a really, really fun time. And if there's one thing I can say, it's get involved when you come to Acadia. My first 2 years, I was a little bit of a shut-in, and I'm very, very glad that in my third and fourth, I decided to get out there, get involved more with the clubs and events and conferences that happen within the department, and I couldn't be happier. So hopefully that inspires you to enjoy your time here.
Great, thanks very much, Jeff. That's excellent. So I think at this point, we are moving into a question and answer section. Is that right, Claire? Would you like to take over the coordination?
I would. Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you to Haley and Jeff. That was wonderful. I might actually have a couple more questions for you, if that's okay. I think what's really important for students to know is maybe, I'm not sure if everybody on the line has ever been to Wolfville, so maybe you could kind of explain what made you choose it and what you love most about living in Wolfville. And Haley, why don't you go first?
Okay. So actually, originally, I wanted to go to university out west, and I only went to Acadia for an open house day because I got the day off school. And I automatically fell in love with the campus, the energy. I liked how small and not overwhelming it was. I liked that it seemed like students were enjoying their time while I was walking by and walking through libraries. It was kind of the vibe that I really wanted. I won't lie, the Irving Center was definitely a big draw for me because it was a building dedicated to environmental science, and I wanted to pursue environmental science. So, and I ended up working there for the 3-4 years. I think it was 3.5 years in my degree. So I definitely had my time in that building. But yeah, it was just the all around feel of the town. It was really welcoming.
Perfect, thank you. And Jeff, what about you coming from out of province?
Well, I had come out to the East Coast on a family vacation a few years before I came out to university, and I absolutely fell in love with Nova Scotia. It's just a gorgeous province. So when it came time to choosing some schools, I went to a little fair, and they had all the books and tables set up, and I just picked out a bunch of the East Coast ones because I knew that's sort of where I wanted to go. Then I planned a trip with my dad out for one weekend to come out here and see Acadia, Dalhousie, and St. Mary's. And I saw Acadia the first day, and Wolfville was just stunning, and all the people and professors I met and the buildings, it was just incredible. I had a great time. And then the next day I went and toured Dalhousie, and it's a nice school. It is. It's way bigger and way more chaotic, I guess you could say. And I didn't even go see St. Mary's because I just said, no, I like Acadia the best, and I don't think anything's going to change my mind. And yeah, it's just very comfortable. Very quiet.
Perfect. That's a very similar experience that I had. So that's great to hear. I think I'm going to ask one more question of you two, and then we'll go on with the PowerPoint. If you could go back to first year, what would be the biggest piece of advice you would give yourself? And sorry, Haley, let's start with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say to take risks. It's definitely overwhelming, kind of starting a whole new life and a whole new chapter with new people and unfamiliar faces. But yeah, I would push yourself outside of those limits. Maybe see if you can join at least one extracurricular, be it Fletcher or ESSA or even in one of our other many societies on campus. I actually remember in my first year how I got my job with Nelson was asking if I could volunteer in his lab, and he had a position open later that summer. So even just having the courage to talk to your professors and make those connections, it's good to get started even in your first year, even when it seems scary. So I would say take risks for sure.
Yeah, and I would just say get involved. There are so many things to do on the campus with clubs and just other events. And I mean, one thing that really became clear to me this year, and especially this semester, I had planned to get a lot done and do a lot of things that I hadn't have done my first 2 years because I was a bit on the quieter side. And when the whole COVID thing shut everything down, I no longer had the chance to do those things. So if I could go back and tell myself to get out of your room and get out and do things, I definitely would, because then I wouldn't sort of be in this situation now.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your contributions. Those are great little tips. Hopefully the students on the line appreciate those as well. If you could just hit the next slide, please. All right, so for the students on the line, if you do want to access this presentation again, it will be uploaded onto acadiau.ca within 48 hours. If you have any kind of general questions about enrollment or admissions and whatnot, and you don't want to ask it on this call, you can definitely email Acadia for you at acadiau.ca. And if you have any program-specific questions, you can email Dr. Rob Rayside, and his email is there on the screen as well. Which leads us into our Q&A session. So just a couple of little tidbits to go on that. Sorry, just the next slide.
Yep.
All right, so if you would like to do kind of an audible question, please type RH into the chat box, and you can come on the line, or if you prefer, you can just type it into the chat box, and we will go on first come, first serve. And we already have a question. Perfect. So how often do students work for professors, and is that common? Dr. O'Driscoll, do you want to?
Okay. Sorry, sure, yes. So in terms of working for professors, there's a lot of different ways in which that can happen. It could be through a co-op program, and sometimes, well, actually every year I have at least 1 or 2 co-op students working in my lab at Acadia, my research lab. Haley was one of them, so she knows. She worked several co-op terms in my lab. There are also sometimes I would take volunteers in my lab to do work if they just want to get a bit of experience. I do that sometimes as well. Irving scholars also have mandated as part of their scholarship is to do work on some sort of research within the Irving Center. So those are ways which they get involved. So those are kind of more formal ways in which you can get involved with doing work with professors, but there also are special project opportunities. There are things you'll get involved with for your courses that put you in contact with professors. And keep in mind, most of our classes in the upper years are so small. Most of my classes are less than 20 students. So I do know all of my students, and there are lots of times to chat and learn about what we do. And professors are very happy to talk at length about their research. So if you bring up research, you can expect that we're going to talk to you about it for quite a while. But my students, as they leave my lab, also they come with a wealth of contacts that they've made just through knowing me and knowing other researchers and knowing other industries. So any professor that you get to know and work with are going to raise opportunities for other networking possibilities for you.
And if I can add to that, that we also, through the course of the fall and winter terms, we have various teaching assistantships that we award in the department. We don't pay a whole lot of money, but they do give you a whole lot of experience and look great on your resume. And these can be used to assist people, assist students in lower level years in their labs, or to do some of the marking of the labs, or to do some of the technical work that's required in rock preparation.
That's great. Are there any other questions? All right, so we will put the emails, if you do end up having any questions, we'll put them in the chat box for you. And I'd just like to say thank you so much, Dr. Rayside and Dr. O'Driscoll, and to Haley and Jeff. Thank you for being here and offering so much insight into the program. I know it was very helpful. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for organizing this. Thanks, Haley and Jeff and Rob. And I look forward to seeing all the students in the fall.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All the best.